Hello, thank you everybody for sticking around after the film. My name is Ernie Quiroz. I am the Cine Fronteras programmer for the Milwaukee Film Festival. Thank you for watching the film and enjoying the festival, and thank you for this Q&A where I am proud to have one of the co-directors, Kristen Lappas, with us talking about the film.
Thank you so much for having me, Ernie. I'm so excited to be here. I wish we were doing this in person, but hopefully next year.
Yeah, I know. Knock on wood. Hopefully, for your next project, we can get into next year's festival, and then we can be doing this in person.
Exactly.
Yeah, but for now, let's talk about this project, Blackfeet Boxing, Not Invisible, which was a 30 for 30 film shown on ESPN and multiple award winning at many festivals. We're so glad that we were able to get it for this festival. For people you may not know, but we're showing this film before a feature film called Luchadoras. Very similar themed ideas of Native American, Indigenous, Latino women sort of empowering themselves, fighting back against just these horrible things that are happening in different parts of the world, tragically. So talk a little bit about, I can give statistics. Something I read, the U.S. Justice Department says that Native American women are 10 times more likely to be murdered than non-Native American women. Most Native American women, 80%, experience some sort of violence. But kind of go beyond the statistics is your film to tell those human stories. So talk a little bit about the film and sort of the ideas, the genesis of this project.
Absolutely. Just to go back to the statistics that you were just listing, they're tragic. And I honestly am embarrassed to say that I didn't know a lot of those statistics before I started working on this film. I was actually on a plane coming back from another shoot, and I happened to put on the feature film Wind River, which is fictionalized, but it's about a girl who goes missing from a reservation in Wyoming. And the film ends with a slate over black that basically just says, while there are missing person statistics for every other demographic, none exist for Native American women, and no one knows how many are missing. And I remember reading it and just being really taken off guard. And I wanted to get off the plane and start reading about why this was and why it wasn't more recognized and publicized in our media. Anyways, my research led me to a small paper in Great Falls, Montana, and that's where I found an image of Frank Kipp at the Blackfeet Nation Boxing Club. And I saw this picture of these two girls sparring, and the caption was, Frank teaches girls and women self-defense and how to fight for their lives at the Blackfeet Nation Boxing Club. And I work for ESPN, and I'm always looking for stories that kind of talk about the intersection between women's rights and sport and women's empowerment. And I just felt like this was such an amazing story, and I had to learn more about it. I flew out to the reservation a week later, and I prepared and researched, but nothing can prepare you for when you meet these women and you meet these girls at the gym. And for them, this is not statistics. This is their mother, their cousin, their sister. And every single girl at that gym had a personal story about somebody they knew that had either been gone missing, been murdered, or had been physically or emotionally abused. And it was really hard to listen to, but it just made me feel even more determined to share this story on a national scale.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how, so obviously you sort of knew Frank and the gym was going to be sort of a narrative through line for the film. But talk about all the other stories. You just said that you've talked to so many women, so many girls. How do you determine, to tell a half-hour story? I'm sure you have all kinds of stories that you could have focused on. How did you find that hook for those stories?
Sure. I mean, it was very challenging because there are so many different directions that this film could have gone in. Obviously, Ashley Loring Heavy Runner was the most recent case of a girl who had a lot of potential on the reservation who had gone missing. And that had just happened. right when, right after right before, excuse me, we went out to the reservation. And so, the population in that community is only 16,000 people. The plot of land is bigger than the state of Rhode Island, but it's only a community of 16,000. And so in going and speaking with all of these girls and young women, every single one of them mentioned Ashley and how she was just the most recent case, but she symbolized so much more. She was a straight A student. She was a photographer. She was involved in sports. And to see this happen to her was really troubling. And a lot of the girls who were concerned for their own safety ended up joining Frank's gym as a response to Ashley's disappearance. So once I heard that, I just knew that was going to be kind of the through story that we were going to have kind of run through the film to kind of help share the stories of all these different women. And it was also, honestly, Ernie, I learned going and speaking to people that there hadn't been a ton of positive stories about the reservation. They were actually really skeptical of the media and were skeptical of my project originally. And they said that people had come and they had taken and they had said they were going to, make a film about one thing and it was about something else, and that people really just, focused on the negative aspects of the culture. And my whole thing to them was like, this is going to be a positive story about the good work that Frank is doing at the gym for the next generation of young women. And once people learned that was, authentic and genuine, and that was what we were trying to do, I think a lot of people opened up to us, which was wonderful.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, about how, I'm sure you were sort of perceived as an outsider and sort of, probably very hesitant to open up to you, but talk a little bit maybe about that process, because weren't you there for over a year filming?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. The first 2 trips we made to the reservation, we did not have cameras with us. Those were really just trips to introduce ourselves, to share meals, just to talk and get to know each other. Because, one thing that I kind of hold very dear to my heart is that when I'm asking somebody about like the most sacred aspects of their lives, I want to be able to make sure that they trust me and they know me a little bit. So those first 2 trips were really, really helpful in kind of breaking down those walls. And then from there, honestly, it was a huge, huge factor that kind of played into why people were so comfortable with this film, was that we brought on 2 associate producers who were of Blackfeet descent, Ivan and Ivy McDonald, and they are wonderful up-and-coming filmmakers from the reservation. And we just felt like having their expertise and, them having lived this firsthand could really help educate us as outsiders. And so Ivan and Ivy were I say this all the time, they were like my guides throughout this whole process. And they were so, so important to the entire film. We're so grateful to have had them. But, they really helped open up those doors as well. And one of my favorite stories to share with people is that, as filmmakers, you just hope that you're kind of breaking down those walls and you're earning that trust. The last time I was on the reservation was in October of 2019, and I was 7 months pregnant. And the last thing that they did when we turned all the cameras off and we were done with the shoot was they asked me to come into the ring, and they gave me an Indian name, and they blessed my unborn baby, and they presented me with all these different gifts, like handmade clothing for her and stuff. And like, it was just such an honor to finally be like welcomed and accepted into that community. So it's just an experience that I'll never forget. And it kind of shows you how it all goes full circle. And like, you come as an outsider and people aren't really sure, and then you end, as family. I still keep in touch, obviously, with all the subjects from the film.
Yeah, so that since you said that, any updates on Frank and Donna, and because this was 2018-19 that you said that you filmed, so almost 2 years. So any updates on everybody?
Yes. So obviously, like everybody else, across the world, COVID definitely kind of changed the path for what they had hoped to do, in the last year and a half. But Donna is an amazing, amazing individual. She originally was hoping to graduate from high school and then come back as the lead trainer at the Blackfeet Nation Boxing Club. The gym has been closed from March of 2020 through now, but they actually, I just found out that the gym is going to reopen in the next month, which is super, super exciting. It's been over a year that it's been closed. And for Frank, it was really troubling because for a lot of kids on the reservation, that was their escape. That was the place they felt safe, their outlet. And so he's really been worried about a lot of the kids because they haven't had that. So it's a huge, huge deal that it's reopening. And Donna does plan to train young girls and women at the gym. She's also been the first responder during the COVID pandemic, and she's been working in the hospital on the reservation, which is like so admirable and amazing. So, Frank has held some Zoom classes to help, keep the kids in shape and have that sense of community. But he's really looking forward to this spring to kind of reopen the doors and start things up.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Do you know if there's a website or how to keep track if people at home want to keep track of the boxing club and Frank, or maybe even contribute to help out, the best way to contact him?
Yeah, absolutely. So they do have a Facebook page. If you just search Blackfeet Nation Boxing Club, and they also have a GoFundMe page. And, the proceeds from that page go to equipment for the kids in the gym. It goes to paying the electricity bill. There are days that honestly, Frank couldn't turn the electricity on because they just couldn't pay the bills. He has poured everything that he has into this gym. And so, I always say that any small amount is a lot to them because it just keeps the gym going and it keeps the mission alive, which is obviously so important to me and to all the kids on the reservation.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Kimberly, Ashley's sister, and now she's a spokesperson for the MMIW, Murdered Missing Indigenous Women. Talk a little bit about that organization and her role, and then if people want to help her out, how best to do that.
Absolutely. Kimberly is my hero. She is one of the most courageous people I've ever met. To have this happen to your sister, and there's obviously so many different ways you could handle it, but she chose to make her sister, the face of this, this horrible epidemic. And she's gone to DC to speak in front of Congress. She has really become the spokesperson for missing, murdered Indigenous women. And she's, created so much change already. There were two policies passed in September for the first time ever, the Not Invisible Act and the Savannah's Act, that are gonna, help to contribute to fixing these problems, and that all started with Kimberly, which is amazing. So she's doing really well. She lives in Seattle now. She does go back to the reservation, to see family and friends. But they do have a site called the Sovereign Bodies Institute, and that website basically helps to create databases for all of the missing and murdered women, Indigenous women in the United States, and they do a lot of other really good work. So Kimberly's very involved with them, and that's like a really great cause that like people can contribute to, and that would help, definitely help the cause.
Mm-hmm. I know that COVID probably obviously changed the trajectory of the film. Have you had a chance to show the film on the reservation to the people from the community, from the Blackfeet Nation?
So not yet. We did have our premiere at the Big Sky Film Festival, which is in Missoula, Montana. It's about 2 hours from the reservation, and we paid for a bunch of them to come down to watch the screening in the theater. It was really exciting. They were really moved by it, and it was such a great experience to see them witness the film like that. We have been desperately trying to set up a screening on the res. They were hit really, really hard. A lot of the elders, have passed because of this awful, awful disease, and so we just wanted to be respectful and wait until this summer when people are feeling more comfortable. But we're really hopeful that we're going to be able to screen it on the reservation. They have a celebration called Indian Days in July, and people have talked about maybe potentially doing it then.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
For people that maybe want to watch the film again, or maybe want to share with their community of how, you know, to spread this message, is there a way to watch the film? Or you know, I know it was broadcast on ESPN, but how can people share this film with others?
Absolutely. So it is available on ESPN's streaming platform, which is ESPN Plus. But what's really exciting is that now that ESPN and Hulu and Disney are all part of the same family, it's also available on Hulu right now, which is great. So Hulu and ESPN Plus, people can check it out. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yes.
And now you work for ESPN Films, right? So talk about any current projects that you're working on that you can share with us.
Yeah, so actually, as of today, I can finally share my exciting new project because it's going to be announced later today. But I am directing my first feature-length 30 for 30 film on the 1996 USA women's basketball team, who basically were the inspiration for a women's professional league in our country, and they kind of
WNBA.
Yes, exactly. They were the inspiration for the WNBA and kind of changed the image and the trajectory of women's sports in our country. So that's really exciting. It's going to come out next summer, which is the 50-year anniversary of the passing of Title IX. So that's what
very cool. That was with was Cheryl Miller,
Cheryl Swoops,
and who? Oh yeah.
Yep, Lisa Leslie,
Leslie. Yeah.
So it's,
I remember that. I'm actually from Phoenix, and so Phoenix Mercury, a world champion, Phoenix Mercury, Michelle Timms.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah. Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Any timeline of when that's going to come out, or any completion target date?
We are hoping, crossing our fingers, hoping for it to be released in June of 2022.
June next year. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. You heard it here first at the Milwaukee Film Festival. Breaking news in this Q&A. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing this film with us. Very important message, and hopefully everyone will get a chance to share it with people that they think needs to see it, which I think everyone needs to see this, and hopefully get a chance to maybe help out Frank and help out the girls. Kristen, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Ernie. I really appreciate it.
And fingers crossed, we'll keep an eye out for the new film.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.